Hey A&Pers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P1 Lecture Test 4, Video 13, covering page 14 of the Noteset. So we talked about the amount of tension in each individual muscle cell / muscle fiber. And we said that it depended on the amount of overlap in the zone of overlap and the frequency of stimulation. We also said that each muscle cell followed the all or none principle. It's either contracting to the very best of its ability, or it's not contracting. There's no in between. There's no try. Do or do not. There is no try. All right, that's some Yoda wisdom. Not Baby Yoda, though. All right, so now let's talk about the amount of tension produced by the whole muscle. It depends on two things. Number one is the tension produced by each individual muscle fiber, and two, by the number of muscle fibers stimulated. So if each muscle fiber is putting out a little tension and you only have a few of them, then you only have a little muscle tension generated. But if you have a lot of muscle fibers stimulated and they're each producing a lot of tension, then your muscle is generating more tension as a whole. So it's a simple multiplication. Okay, they might not all be generating the same amount of tension, so it might not be. But each muscle cell is the length of the muscle, so they all should have about the same overlap in the zone of overlap. Interesting. As muscle fibers produce tension, they pull on the tendons, and the tendons blend into the periosteum, and so they pull the bones. Motor units. We talked about neuromuscular junctions, and we said that each skeletal muscle cell, excuse me. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay, neuromuscular junction, that each motor neuron has one neuromuscular junction with each skeletal muscle cell, but that while each skeletal muscle cell only has one neuromuscular junction, that each motor neuron can control a number of skeletal muscle cells at the same time. And the motor unit is the motor neuron and all of the skeletal muscle cells that it controls. So here we have three motor neurons, and they are in the anterior gray horn of the spinal cord, which is where motor neuron somas reside. And so we've got a red and a blue and a purple in this example, and you can see that the red motor unit, these muscles that are controlled by this color-coded red nerve here, are interspersed throughout the entire muscle. Same with the blue and the purple. Okay, I'm going to take this bracelet off because it's too loose. I need it re-threaded. See the extra string on the ends? Anyway, it's about to fall off my arm, and I don't want to lose it. So, okay. So the motor nerve innervates this muscle. Here you've got the three motor units, and here it shows how they are each motor unit is activated in sequence so that the tension is added up not over time, but here you've got just the red and you've got a low amount, and then here you add in the blue and now you've got twice as much tension. And so at all times you have about twice as much tension because you're activating different motor units. Okay, so for precise control as in eye movement, to test the eye movement you do an H, you go up and down and over and up and down, and you're looking for a straight, smooth movement of the eyeball. Okay. Oh, why were we talking about that? For precise control as an eye movement, a motor unit may contain as few as 4 to 6 muscle cells. So here, this example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they could be this small. Motor units could be this small in the little muscles that move the eye. And we are going to learn the muscles that move the eyeball, but not till 2402 for the first lab test. And for less precise control, as in leg movement or any postural muscle that holds you upright, so the big muscles of the back, the leg, can have 1,000 to 2,000 muscle cells in each motor unit. So each nerve can have fewer muscle cells for precise control, like in your hands, or lots of cells for strength. Less precision, more strength. And recruitment is when you increase the active number of motor units. It's like you go to pick something up and you think it's going to be light, and so you only activate so many motor units. And like you go to pick up your bag and you think it's empty, and so you think you're going to just pick it up, but it's very heavy because your A&P book is in it, and so then you recruit a bunch of more active motor units to actually move our enormously heavy book. Muscle tone. Oh, here's a picture that we were talking about in the previous video. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Okay, we weren't ready for that either. All right, muscle tone. Same slide. The resting tension in a skeletal muscle is called muscle tone. And the muscle tone is that some of the cells, so like at least one motor unit, is active at all times in every muscle. And it helps with body position, it helps stabilize the bones and the joints, and it helps in shock absorption. So when you move or exercise more, you increase your muscle tone, so you've got more motor units active all the time, and that raises your resting metabolism rate. This means that your body is expending more energy all day long, making it easier to lose weight. So would it be possible for small changes like taking the stairs, parking farther away to make a difference over time? Absolutely. Now, I'm recording this during COVID times, and I have not been standing up talking in a room for 7.5 hours a day, 4 days a week. And I can definitely tell that I have lost muscle strength and stamina. So I've gotten my butt back on the treadmill, because when I'm working at work full time, I'm getting lots of exercise, running back and forth between buildings every hour and a half. And without that, even with walking the dog and all of that, no, I like the strength and the stamina. So back on the treadmill. There you go. So small changes add up over time. Which is true of everything. It's true of working out, it's true of studying, it's true of saving money. Small changes add up over time. So let's talk about changing your study habits. A lot of times in the world, we want one big change that makes a lot of difference, and that does happen on occasion. But most often, what makes the biggest changes are when you increase performance by 1%. And then you keep working at it until you increase performance by another percent. And then you increase performance by 1%. And then you increase performance by that 1% or 0.5% or 1/4%. And school is that way, where you figure out the study routines or disciplines or whatever strategies work for you. And it might not be a big change. It might be a big change, like you start actually making your own flashcards, or you start color coding your flashcards, or you start keeping two piles of flashcards. So if you look at it and you know that off the top of your head, you put that in a pile that you review less often, and you focus on those cards that you look at and you almost remember, or you need a hint, and you do those more often. And then the ones that I don't know those at all, you just introduce a few at a time into the, so sometimes they're little tweaks where like you start working more on the spelling, or find how you study spelling. I'm an oral learner, so I have to say it out loud. You know, Definitely. Okay, I have to say it out loud to hear it right in my head. For a visual, you might need to see it. You might need it color coded. For kinesthetic, write it, and then check your spelling. And if you're not sure which you are, do all of them. Say it out loud and write it down and look at it. Color code it if you can. So definitely always safe to do all three. And that 1% difference is where you find what works best for you. I'm bored easily, so I never study the same way twice. Every day it's a different strategy. So for me to study, because I get bored easy, I have to have not my core study skills. I have to have a giant bag of study strategies. And I just pick and choose whatever feels right at the moment. And at any time, if your brain cuts out and like you're still writing the words down, but you're not processing anything, quit. Take a break, eat, sleep, exercise, do what you need to do to reactivate your brain. And food and sleep and exercise are the best ways to keep your brain working over time. So definitely, if you can make that part of your routine, there's absolutely a reason to believe that it will help your brain process better and faster. Okay, so all of that to say, would it be possible for small changes over time to add up to a big difference? Absolutely. That's usually what does it. Okay. All right, so different types of contractions. And now for the other weird picture. Okay, so there are isotonic contractions and isometric contractions. The first word in that first box in that list and the last box on the list. So ISO means same. And tonic means the tone, which is the tension. So isotonic contractions have the same tension, which means they change in length. So an isotonic contraction, the skeletal muscle changes in length. Compare that to an isometric contraction, where metric means something you can measure, in this case length. So isometric contractions are skeletal muscles that are contracting at the same length, which means they're changing in tension. Okay, so let's go back to the isotonic contractions. There are two types of isotonic contractions. Isotonic concentric contractions and isotonic eccentric contractions. So in isotonic concentric contractions, the muscle gets shorter. The muscle shortens. So this is when you pick something up and you're able to pick it up. So the tension that you're able to produce exceeds the load. The load is whatever you're trying to move. The tension exceeds the load. So if you're playing tug of war, this is when you're winning, okay? And your biceps are getting shorter. An isotonic eccentric contraction, the muscle lengthens. So the tension is less than the load, and this helps to control the speed of movement, often in antagonistic muscles. So this would be if you're losing tug of war, you're pulling, but not enough. You're pulling less. The tension you're producing is less than the load being the pull on the rope, the tug of war rope. So isotonic, two parts, Isotonic change length, concentric get shorter, eccentric get longer. Okay. Isometric, you're not changing the length. So isometric exercises would be like if you put your hands together and push them together as hard as you can. So your biceps are contracting, your various muscles here are contracting, and they're changing in tension as you push harder, but they are not changing in length. This would be like if you're carrying groceries, if you're the kind to put the whole thing of groceries on your arm and carry them all in one load. You're holding them and you're tensing, and you're not lifting the groceries, you're carrying them. So that's an isometric contraction. So this has been A&P 1, lecture test 4, video 13, covering page 14. Thank you as always for tuning in. The education must go on. Dr. J.